So I've recently been thinking that I would really like to make some more videos about eating disorders, although not a shitload. I don't want to completely snow out this channel with mental illness stuff that like no longer applies to me. It just seems needlessly depressing. But equally, there is a lot of stuff that I've kind of been through and lived with and known people who've lived with that I think would kind of be a bit of a sad waste not to talk about. And it's my fucking channel, and I'll talk about whatever appeals to me at the time. So this is, you know, has kind of been on my mind recently, and I feel it's worth talking about. There are bunches of eating disorder videos on YouTube, but actually, in terms of being informative about some of the lesser known eating disorders and stuff that's going on that many people don't seem to fucking know about, YouTube is a bit useless. So I'm gonna jump in with a video about diabulimia. Diabulimia is a condition that very few people seem to know about, even to this day, and that is the main reason for me wanting to make this video. I have known somebody who has diabulimia, and yes, I am going to clarify that word in a minute, tell you what it means, and give you the actual word for it, because diabulimia is simply a word that the media have created and has been stuck onto this kind of this syndrome and this behaviour. And it's not the preferred word of choice for everybody else, so I am going to clarify that. I'm mostly saying this for my friend, just in case she's out there sitting going, what the fuck are you doing? Did you not read anything I told you to read? It's alright, I'm going to clarify. I did read, I promise, I read everything. You know I did. But anyway, I've known, yeah, somebody with diabulimia since we were both teenagers, which was a very long time ago. And, you know, I have seen her struggle with just the horrible incapacity that there is with treating this disorder, because it's not understood well enough and nobody knows what the hell to do with it. But I thought that things had improved by now until I saw the BBC documentary, which is on YouTube. I think it's called The World's Most Deadly Eating Disorder or something. I'm going to link like a crap load of stuff below, so look in the description box for all kinds of stuff. But anyway, I saw this documentary and I was like, oh cool, it's, you know, it's getting some like actual BBC mainstream attention. And then I saw the comments, and the majority of comments were going, I've never heard of this. Like, what the hell is it? Even people who had eating disorders themselves, they'd never freaking heard of it. And that really depressed me. And also the documentary, although it had some statistics I didn't know that were horrifying, it didn't seem to go in depth enough, or rather it painted quite a rose-tinted view of it. It made it all seem quite simple and quite easy, like every eating disorder program seems to do. You know, there's the whole kind of like, oh, this is the simple reason for why somebody got sick. Here's their disorder. Oh, wasn't it terrible? And then, oh, they went to their doctor, they got a therapist, and they went to care. They went to hospital, they got patted on the head and given a lolly, and then they went off home and everything was fine. That's not fucking how it goes with an eating disorder, with any eating disorder, and diabulimia particularly. So that kind of bugged me. All of these things bugged me. And at that point, I started pestering my friend with diabulimia. I got on her case and just became this relentless demon on her back, going like, you know, tell me everything. I want to know these things. I want to make a video about it, but I don't want to be a fucking moron about it, because I do not have diabulimia. I'm physically incapable of having diabulimia. I'll explain in a minute. I didn't want to be like a white person talking about shopping while black or something. So I did want the actual thoughts of a diabulimic. Diabulimia, what it is essentially, before I ramble too much further and people are just going, I have no fucking clue what you're talking about. Diabulimia, it is having type 1 diabetes. There are type 1 and type 2. The media, very unhelpfully, tend to umbrella the whole thing under diabetes. And type 1 and type 2 are very different in their causes, their effects, their treatment, everything. They frankly need to have different names because it causes a lot of damage, all this misunderstanding. But type 1, essentially, it's something that can hit you at any time in your life. Usually it's adolescence, but it can be adulthood, it can be childhood. I could get it, you could get it, anyone could get it. It has nothing to do with being a big fat lump. It has nothing to do with what you eat. It's nothing to do with eating too many cakes. And if you do get it, yes, you can still eat a lot of cakes if you want to. You can still drink alcohol, you can do everything. But you need to be constantly monitoring your blood sugar levels, calculating everything that's in your food, and fixing it with insulin shots. So if you know somebody with diabetes who carries around an insulin pen all the time, that is probably a type 1 diabetic. So basically, if you do have type 1 diabetes, you are constantly chained to numbers and measuring what's in your food. And you can see where this feeds into an eating disorder, that everything they eat has to be calculated. Food goes from being, ooh, nice burger, and turns into, okay, there's a bun, that's so many carbohydrates, certain sauces, that might be some more carbohydrates. It turns into just a big ball of numbers. And that's basically an eating disorder. Really is turning food into a big ball of numbers, into control. So if you have type 1 diabetes, you are trying to keep your blood sugar levels within this very narrow range. And if you go below it, oh, bad, 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 and then you die. If you go above it, oh, quite bad, 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 and then you die. So it's a very scary, life-threatening condition. I don't think many people kind of think about how scary it is. That actually insulin for diabetics was only discovered, I haven't looked this up, but I'm pretty sure it was 1950s sometime that insulin was discovered. Before the 1950s, if you got type 1 diabetes, you would just die. I very much doubt you would even live 10 to 15 years after your diagnosis. You just fucking died. So it's still a very newly treated condition. There is no cure as yet, but even the treatment, which is kind of quite flawed and labour intensive and difficult, that's all you've got forever. So it's quite scary. And if you have type 1, diabulimia is omitting your insulin, not taking the insulin and letting your sugar levels rise high, which fucks up your body basically. It stops your body converting glucose into glycogen. Am I getting that right? I know it stops your body processing glucose. So basically you eat, if your sugar levels are high enough, your body can't process the calories and you piss them out. And you lose weight from doing this. You just lose weight very quickly. And that sounds simple. That sounds like the perfect eating disorder. You know, you eat whatever you like. You take enough insulin to keep yourself alive, but you don't take enough, and you just eat whatever you like, and you get skinny. And I confess, when I first got to know my friend who has diabulimia, I was eating disordered, and that's how we got to know each other. And I confess, I think I felt a little bit jealous that, you know, I had the usual eating disorder toolkit, you know, starving, purging, exercise. There's your kind of, you know, your little pyramid of tools. But she could do all of these things, and then she could just omit her insulin and she'd get skinnier. And I was like, this is so easy for you. Oh my God, I'm like jealous. I just want to fucking smack my younger self for that. But I had to confess to it, because that is the immediate reaction. I feel like if you have an eating disorder and you don't know how dangerous this is, you will think, yeah, you've got another way to purge. It's easy. So it is essentially having type 1 diabetes, omitting your insulin, letting your sugars run high, and your body eats itself to stay alive. So you lose weight. But before you get too excited by that idea, anyone who's out there thinking, I have type 1 diabetes, yeah, this could work. Some scary statistics. I have so many notes made. So some pretty fucking scary statistics about diabetes, which takes in type 1 and type 2, and these are really the only statistics that anyone can go by regarding diabulimia, because of the fact that it hasn't yet been recognised as an official psychiatric disorder. That has a whole fuckload of problems with it. If you haven't recognised it yet, you can't do surveys on it, you can't see who's dying, who's getting better, you can't see anything, and it can't get, you know, effective treatment yet. So all you can go off statistically are the general diabetes stuff, the surveys that have been done, who's dying, what's going on with diabetes. But even from that, you can see that there is a big fucking problem with type 1 diabetics and eating disorders and insulin omission. So some of them are that in 2012, I assume this was in the UK, the, in quotations, avoidable deaths of diabetics, including type 2, the ones who were most likely to die were the type 1 women aged 15 to 30. Obviously, men do get eating disorders too, but women, you know, tend to be the kind of prevalent lump of statistics. So type 1 women aged 15 to 30, they were the ones who died the most in 2012. And you'd think, you know, diabetics, they're going to be dying sort of all over the place. You'd think maybe young kids who are at school and there's not enough care being taken of them, maybe they're going to die, maybe older people. Because apparently when you get type 1 diabetes, your lifespan on average is going to be cut by 10 years. Even if you take care of it very well, 10 years off your life, that's pretty horrible. But no, the old people, they're okay. It's the 15 to 30 category, and that obviously is prime eating disorder real estate, really. 15 to 30, they're dying. Type 1 women are 9 times more likely to die than their peers of any age, it seems like. And then it says that up to 40% of type 1 women have abused their insulin to lose weight. So it's known about with people who have type 1, that most people who are diagnosed with type 1, they're gonna already have high sugar levels, they're gonna have noticed they lose weight. That's one of the first symptoms that is like, I should probably go see if I have diabetes, is if you lose weight without trying, and that's from having your sugar levels too high. So it's not really even something that you need to be searching pro-anorexia websites to find out about. You're going to find out about it on your own, that emit insulin, lose weight, and you're not necessarily going to know about the long-term consequences just yet. The statistic that was talked about in the BBC documentary that really made me think, shit, I didn't know this, was the statistic that 60% of type 1 females will have had a diagnosable eating disorder by the age of 25. And that's crazy. I mean, that's not just somebody who's made themselves throw up once, that's a diagnosable eating disorder. By 25, the majority of type 1 females, you know, and I would say in the, you know, in the general community, when it comes to anorexia, bulimia, things like that, the percentage I'd say for people of that age range who have had a diagnosable eating disorder, it's probably round about 5 to 7%. You know, at the biggest estimate, probably 15 to 17%. You know, with the rise of social media and how people are just becoming more fixated on their appearance. Anorexia, bulimia, maybe 15% at most of the general population. But with type 1 diabetes and females, 60% have been eating disordered by the time they're 25. The majority. That's a horrifying statistic to me. That's crazy. And apparently even 11% of type 1 adolescent men have omitted their insulin to lose weight. And I've known someone in, you know, my age, in their 30s, I think that's how old he is. And he was type 1 diabetic, and he kept screwing it up. He kept screwing up his insulin when he was drinking, and, you know, he'd end up really sick and stuff. And I said to him, you know, have you tried applying for a pump to try and get a pump, you know, which doesn't fix anything, but it simplifies things a little bit. And he said, no, I don't want to get a pump because I'll get fat. You know, and this is a very healthy, very kind of active guy who's slim, attractive, all of this, and he deliberately would abuse his insulin and just not take it so that he could go out drinking all night and get skinnier. I think without really, or I think everyone who does this knows that it's not good for them. It doesn't feel fun, it doesn't make you feel great, it makes you feel like shit, but just like every other eating disorder, you kind of think, is it worth it? Like, are those things that are really bad going to happen to me? Nah, they'll happen to someone else. Like me, I'll be fine. And it's not true. So the shit that happens to you, well, I mean, the obvious kind of like you're about to fucking drop dead thing is that you can go into, let me say this right, diabetic ketoacidosis. Did I get that right? DKA. If your sugars run too high or for too long, you just cock it and you're dead. But other things that can happen, diabetic retinopathy, that's your eyes just, you will lose your vision. You can go completely blind. Basically anyone who abuses their insulin in this way for a long enough time will end up with quite marked decline in their vision. But yeah, you can go completely blind, and that's horrifying. And then there's the nerve damage. You can end up with horrible nerve damage in your extremities, your hands and your feet, which seems to show itself either as a kind of numbness. Diabetes, when you're running your sugar too high especially, will cause slower healing. So if you do wallop your foot or your hand off of anything, it gets a cut or a broken bone, it's not going to heal properly. You can get an infection. The infection goes crazy because you're not healing, and you can lose a leg, an arm, anything. You can get amputations. I think everybody knows that all forms of diabetes can lead to amputation. Otherwise, you can get a neuropathy that results in horrible, horrible pain in your feet or your hands, and that's not going to go away. Once you let that get to that stage, yes, let is kind of the wrong word, but once it gets to that stage, I think you can recover it a little bit, but it's always going to be there. And you know, this does happen to people who are very young. It happens very quickly. It's not something that you can just think, oh, fuck, it'll happen when I'm like 55. And that's fucking old as fart anyway. I don't want to be that old. Fuck it. No, it will happen to you very early. Your kidneys can fail. And then one that I was actually talking about with my friend recently was the poop factor. Incontinence. You can end up incontinent from omitting your insulin, because again of the nerve damage. Your nerves in your stomach, presumably in your intestines, your colon, the whole thing, you will eat and you just will shit yourself. So even if you do lose lots of weight and get into some gorgeous clothes and look fantastic, you know, and just lose weight, eat whatever you like, be that effortlessly, beautifully skinny girl, you are going to be doing it with shit down the back of your leg, quite possibly. And this doesn't just go for diabulimia, this is every eating disorder out there. As I was saying to my friend, I think everybody who's had an eating disorder for more than about 18 months, they've got a poo story. It happens, yeah. If you screw with your digestive tract and you don't eat for ages, or you eat and you throw up for ages, whatever you're doing, you know, and you abuse laxatives, even if you don't abuse laxatives, you will end up with your stomach going, dude, I've had enough of this. I'm going to make a stand. I'm going to show you something you're never going to forget. Yeah. Everybody's got a poo story. Everybody has got an embarrassingly shitting themselves story, and I don't exempt myself from that statement. Everybody has a poo story. It's not glamorous, it's not sexy, it's not fun. So I guess finally, to move on to actually classifying this shit and stop using the word diabulimia. Diabulimia, like say, it's what the media have categorized this eating disorder. But the people who actually have diabulimia, and there is one charity in the UK who do an enormous amount for diabulimic people, and that is Diabetics with Eating Disorders, DWED, DWED. I will link them below as well. They have a very useful frequently asked questions section about diabulimia, and it talks about the terms and the labels that they've tried to give it and have tried to get recognised officially. The first one they went for was EDDMT1, which obviously is a pretty big mouthful. It didn't catch on. They have now moved that label to being type 1 ED, so it's like TIDE. So yeah, TIDE is what I'm going to call it. So diabulimia essentially is more, I think, of a behaviour than a label. So diabulimia is basically the act of having type 1 and omitting it to lose weight. That is what diabulimia is. But TIDE is type 1 and having an eating disorder. I have taught for a really long time, so I'm going to try and make this quick. But yeah, the problems with diabulimia and treating it is very, very different from treating any other eating disorder. My friend who has it, I have watched her go through horrible, horrible treatment, you know, inpatient, outpatient, all of this stuff, because the people who have taken her on, when, you know, she has desperately needed help eating disorder wise, they've just made it worse. The main thing with eating disorder treatment is that it is about control in many cases. It's about controlling things you can't control. And obviously, if you have an autoimmune condition that is ruining your body, that is out of your control, that you do everything for constantly, every day, multiple times, and it still isn't doing what you're telling it to do, that is just the epitome of being out of control. Of course, you're going to seek to control something. And then when you recover from an eating disorder, generally you're told you've got to stop controlling everything. You've got to stop controlling food, stop counting calories, stop looking at food as though it's numbers, just eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full, and allow yourself to feel healthy and let go of control. That's generally the message given to people, I think, in eating disorder recovery. You can't do that if you're diabulimic. You can't let go of control. You can't just go to your friend's house and eat what they're having and not think about it, because you have to keep monitoring your blood sugars, you have to keep counting the carbohydrates, you have to keep doing the insulin. It is a numbers game. All food is always going to be a numbers game for you if you have type 1 diabetes. So mentally, the treatment is very different. And then physically, a lot of people treating eating disorders, they don't understand diabetes. They don't understand the fine print with it. Just a couple of the examples that my friend had written on the DWED blog. She'd said, you know, being in treatment and, you know, you're given your main meal and then you're given some pudding. And if your pudding, you're told a banana is your pudding, you're going to dose insulin for that banana and then expect the banana. And then they say, oh, sorry, I've run out of bananas. Have a pear instead. It's a fruit. It's pudding. It's not the same for a type 1 diabetic. You know, the carbohydrates in it aren't the same. The insulin isn't the same. Another thing she mentioned was how rigid you have to be with meal times and all of that. If you do have type 1, you can be told, okay, dinner's happening, dose yourself. So you dose yourself and then it's, oh shit, sorry, the cook's running late. Dinner's going to be in about 25 minutes. Can't do that. You're going to be shaking and sick and spaced out and barely able to see and very close to death, actually, by the time you get your meal. And, you know, as if going inpatient for an eating disorder isn't horrible and stressful enough anyway, to have all of this on top of it and to feel that your life is literally in danger because the people who are supposedly safeguarding your welfare are trying to fucking kill you because they don't know what they're doing. And this has been, you know, the experience that I've seen her have, I don't know how many times, and it's been gutting every time that she's come out. And it's not only been unhelpful, but it's been really fucking traumatic as well. So diabetics with eating disorders, they seem to be managing to get some care going that is specifically for TIDE people. Now, it seems like there's one clinic in London, maybe two, but I think it's just one, who actually specifically deal with TIDE people. If anyone has experience of being with them, then tell me things. Other than that, if you do have type 1 and you have been doing this or you're struggling with any kind of eating disorder, then yeah, the DWED site, they have a shitload of stuff. They have blogs and all of that, but they also have a forum. I have not looked on the forum. I felt like it would be rude for me to join the forum just for research. Not just because, you know, everybody there has to be diabetic. I think there are probably a lot of friends and concerned family members of diabetics on that forum, but I felt like it was my friend's little world and I shouldn't just kind of jump in there, you know. But they have a forum and they have a lot of people who are doing well in recovery from TIDE, that they have a support team, I think, on Facebook, who have to be, they only let people be in the support team if they've been recovered for 2 years or more, no behaviours at all. So there are a lot of people with positive stories to tell. Like, it is possible to break free of it, but it's freaking difficult and it's completely different to recovering from any other eating disorder. So I guess, I've talked for a long time. To jump back into the diabetic thing, just hopefully vaguely quickly, type 1 versus type 2. The reason that a lot of diabetics get pissed off about this distinction not being made is the fact that the media can be so angry about diabetics. I'm sure all of us have seen these angry media headlines about how much of a strain diabetes is and diabetics are on the NHS. And you would never get this kind of like angry finger pointing, you are such a drain on society. You wouldn't get that for like a kid with leukemia. You know, it wouldn't be like, you little bald fuck off and shoot yourself, you're a drain. It's not like that. And the reason that diabetes gets this kind of, why are you fucking diabetic going on, is because of the stereotype of type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes can be caused by weight and lifestyle. It isn't always. Some people are just genetically predisposed to having diabetes and it's not their fault and shit happens. But, a fair few people with type 2, it gets them because they're overweight or obese, because their diet is bad. And for those people, it is controlled usually with oral medication and with trying to avoid really sugary foods. But yeah, all these headlines that say, oh, if you eat loads of vitamin C and loads of fish, you'll never get diabetes. And these headlines come out about twice a week if you read the Daily Mail, which I really hope you don't. And it's, you know, they assume that all diabetics are the same, which means that type 1 diabetics, who are in no way to blame for their condition, get all of this crap dumped on them. That in schools, you know, kids with type 1 diabetes, their friends will come up to them and say, oh, you must have that because you ate loads of cakes. It's not, it's an autoimmune condition, it just happens. Or they're out with their friends and their friends say, oh my God, should you be eating right? You're not allowed to eat cakes, you're diabetic. And it's, oh, no, it's a different thing. So yeah, if you don't know about diabetes and you know somebody diabetic, try not to lump your kind of general assumptions onto them unless you actually have done your research. Let them tell you what it's about. Maybe they don't want to be probed with questions, maybe they just want to get on with it, but in general, don't tell them they shouldn't be eating cake unless you literally absolutely for a fact know they shouldn't be eating cake. Don't assume it, because that's kind of another thing that, you know, if you do have TIDE, if you are a type 1 diabetic with an eating disorder, constantly being told that you have all these problems you have today because you were a fat fuck and you ate too much, that's not going to be helpful. So I guess one more point that's kind of like randomly in there, just in terms of understanding people with TIDE and why they find it so difficult to take their insulin, I think it can probably be equated to any other behaviour with eating disorders. That, you know, say, take just anorexia for an easy example. If you are constantly starving yourself, yeah, you feel like fucking shit all the time. You feel hungry, you feel dizzy, spaced out, grumpy, angry, pissed off. But feeling like that becomes a safety blanket. That is how you feel when you know your body's running on empty and you're not going to get fat. The minute you feel energetic and healthy, you feel desperately uncomfortable with it. You feel this is making me fat. And every time you eat food that is over your calorie limit, yeah, it's going to make you feel healthier, but you're going to feel horrible mentally. And that's sometimes harder to deal with. So from what I've gathered, taking insulin for somebody with TIDE can feel much the same. That, yeah, emitting insulin, they feel thirsty, they feel weak, they feel horrible, but it becomes their normal. It becomes their safety blanket. And every time they have to take insulin, and they actually do take it, it can feel like a failure, like guilt, like they're getting fat, that, you know, they've maybe starved themselves or purged or run their sugars high for a long time. And then when they finally take their insulin, it can feel like destroying all of that progress. It's the same level of guilt and terror and irrational fear that people have with any kind of eating disorder. It is relatable, it is understandable, even though it can on some level seem mad when you see these statistics and you see the things it can do to you. And, you know, with my friend, when I've seen the things that it is doing to her and that she does have to go through, and it will get worse. And I honestly, you know, just on a kind of personal, non-factual note, I don't know really what I can say. At this point, I avoid saying anything. I don't think I have been the most fantastic friend to her over the years. That, you know, you go through being optimistic, you go through being terrified, then you go through the spazzing out and being really, really just, oh God, you're gonna die, just stop doing this. You know, you do that. And that's not helpful either. You know, it doesn't help really anybody with an eating disorder, and I should know better, but I think it's natural. You know, if someone is scaring you and they're doing something you don't understand and you're thinking, you're going to go blind, you're going to end up with no legs, it's horrible, why are you doing this? You do get a bit angry with them, and it's not helpful. I don't know what the answer is, essentially. I have no useful answers, apart from hopefully to get this message out there, to get the diabetics with eating disorder charity out there, to hopefully give them more attention and more people going to it, and hopefully some diabetics getting help there, and eventually TIDE being recognised as a actual condition and being given the treatment that it needs, so that it's hopefully not too late for a lot of people. And I really hope that it's not too late for my friend, because she's amazing and I will really, really, really be devastated and horrified if anything happens to her. So yeah, But anyway, I hope I did you proud, friend out there who I'm not going to name. I hope I have said everything you want me to say. If I haven't, you know where to talk to me, and you can tell me what to say, and I can make a part 2. I'm always here. But yeah, you're fucking awesome. Keep being awesome. I think you're doing better. I think you're doing a little bit better, and I still believe you'll get there in the end. I think you will kick its ass in the end. So yeah, end of. I've spoken for about 40 minutes. Shit! So I hope that was vaguely useful. As I say, I will link a lot of shit below in the description box. If you have anything to add or anything to say or anything to ask away, and if I can't answer it myself, I will probably harass my poor unfortunate friend again and give you the answer via her. So yeah, I think I'm done. Okay, bye bye.